Today, I'm going to show you exactly how you can build a front-end dashboard and application just like this on the screen now. And we're going to be able to connect this to n8n and our AI agents and our workflows to be the back end for our application. And this could be a fully fledged app or website that you could deploy. And the best part about it is that we're going to be able to build this entire interface using no code or whatsoever. But let me show you this dashboard in action. So right here, we have sort of like a lead researcher dashboard. It's pretty basic, but it does show you all the concepts that you need to know to understand exactly what the benefit here is of building out this kind of dashboard. What we can do on this application is provide a full name of somebody that we're looking to research. We can provide an occupation as well as a business name. So I've just filled out these details right here. I've put Alex Amosi, he's the CEO of acquisition.com. I've thrown all of those values in there and I'm going to go ahead and click research lead. That is then going to be connected to n8n, which is then going to get processed through the first lead researcher agent. So I'll show that in action. I'm going to click execute workflow to turn this on. I'm then going to come back to Replit, which is the platform that I'm going to show you exactly how we can use to build this application. And if I just click research lead, that is literally going to send a request over here on n8n to our lead researcher agent. It's going to process the response to the research of this particular individual. And we'll see right here, we're going to get a response back for the research. And then we go Alex Amosi, bunch of details about him and whatever. We can then click this button at the bottom here that says score lead. So this isn't just sort of a one-time webhook request. We can start to string multiple agents and workflows, a part of our n8n system together. And you can see here, I've got a bit of a setup that is going to allow us to do this. And so obviously later in the video, I'm going to show you exactly how to do this. But you can see we've got a lead scoring agent, which is waiting to be triggered. I can hit the score lead button. And there we go. I just got back the lead score of 9 and going back to n8n, we can see our lead scoring agent was triggered as well. I was able to string together two completely separate agents to our dashboard here and have them ran independently of each other, yet still be contained within the one workflow here on n8n. Hopefully that makes sense and you can understand the big benefit here of being able to build out a custom dashboard like this, connect it into our existing n8n workflows and have them all connected together in one workflow run. Before I dive into exactly how I was able to do this and then going on to build another application and another workflow to further demonstrate it, I do want to run through the use case of building out a custom dashboard like this compared to some of the alternative methods for communicating with our n8n workflows right now. If you are an experienced builder here on n8n, you probably are already familiar with the fact that there isn't a whole lot of options for interacting with these workflows. We don't necessarily have an easy interface to communicate data off to our workflows to process and give us responses back. The closest thing that we do have is the n8n form. So if I just type form up here, we can generate web forms in n8n and pass it responses to the workflow. So I can click on this and we're able to create pages. This is a very basic way to send data. Of course, it's essentially one page, one static box that allows us to add words to sort of form submissions, as well as maybe upload some documents, and all of that information can get sent into our workflow, which is great for a good amount of use cases. But there's obviously a lack of flexibility when it comes to customizing the way in which you want people to use the platform. And if it is going to be some sort of an application with users involved or an internal application where it just needs that extra level of flexibility, building out a custom dashboard using a tool like Replit, let's dive in and learn how to do it. Ultimately, Replit Agent is a vibe coding platform. This just means we're able to send plain English off to the agent right here on the left-hand side. It's able to take our request and then start to code. So we're going to take our request and turn it into usable code. So we could tell it to build a dashboard for a lead researcher, which is exactly what I did right here. And it's able to come up with the design. It's able to come up with all of the things that it thinks would be necessary to build out that application. And you're going to get exactly this. If I scroll all the way up to my first message here to this Replit agent, you'll see that I said, can you create a lead researcher app? It should be a form that allows me to upload a name, occupation, and business name. The app will then send this off in a request to this particular webhook. This webhook will produce some results about the person we are researching, and you need to display this output on the page for the user to see the results. Please suggest anything that this app could include. So that was my initial request that I sent over to Replit. From that, it was able to really piece together everything that you can see on the screen now. and turn it into a fully functioning interface. And obviously, as vibe coding goes, not everything is going to go to plan and work right out the gate. You can see here, I did run into an error when it came to the webhook, and I literally just told it, doesn't look like the webhook got hit. Then it tried again. I told it to try fix it again. It came back and it started working. So I pretty much just told it to fix the problem and it was able to fix it. Once again, I'm gonna build a brand new app from scratch so you can get a really good idea as to exactly how to build this and how to talk to the agent to get a good app working. But before I do that, I'm just gonna run through the n8n workflow here so you get a good understanding as to how I've thought about structuring the workflow here with an interface like the one that I've built. Initially here on n8n, I have a webhook right here, which is a post request webhook. This is the main trigger for this workflow, and this is going to be key in order. And this is going to be key to get our application to talk to n8n. Essentially what's happening is that the webhook to trigger the conversation is going to be given to our Replit agent right here. Pretty much when we hit the research lead button, these three values are going to get sent off to that particular webhook. That is going to get detected by n8n, and we're going to have all of those values to use throughout the agent. So it is a very basic webhook request to get it connected. Right after that step, we've got the lead researcher agent. So this is a particular agent which I have prompted to look at the information from the webhook request. We can see here we've got the name, occupation, and business name. I've prompted it to be a lead researcher to look through the person and actually do some research. And in order to do that research, I've actually connected Perplexity as a tool to this agent. And this just gives us much more accurate and relevant information as it's doing a search of actual websites rather than relying on the large language model and the information that it was trained on. So once the lead researcher agent has completed, it's got its response, it's then going to hit a respond to webhook. So the respond to webhook does exactly what you'd think it does. It responds to the webhook and sends it back to where it came from. So we can have a look in here. I'm sending off the research that it's done, and that research comes back to our Replit agent here and then gets displayed on the page like you saw earlier. And in order to get our Replit agent here to actually see that data coming back, we just need to talk to the Replit agent like we're talking to a developer. In the case of this response to webhook, we'll see here that the information is stored within the research value right here. I just needed to go to Replit and tell it that the information is stored within the research value, and then it's able to look through the requests that have previously came through. It's smart enough to pick that up and then rewrite the entire code to handle that. Right after this, we've got a wait step, and this is really important and pretty critical if we are going to be building multiple different agents for the one workflow that we want to have running on our application. And just to make it super clear, the reason that we would want all of our agents and all of our workflows within the same run itself is so that we can reference data from a previous agent into the next agent. For example, I'm obviously going to want to take the research that was done on a lead and reference that in our lead scoring agent. And if these agents were completely separate and required completely different webhooks, we wouldn't easily be able to reference that data from the previous agent. Now, what we could do is set these up as completely separate agents with completely different webhooks and run those requests individually. Although this does mean that we would need to then store the lead researcher information over in Replit somewhere and then retrieve that information once again and then send it off in the webhook, and then it will be seen by the lead scorer. So it does just make it a little bit more complicated, and this is a much more streamlined way to do it. So jumping into the wait node right here, this wait node is probably a little bit more advanced than you think. It's not just going to wait a certain amount of time waiting for another request to come through. You can have a look at a few different options for actually using this step. Just having a look at the list here, you can see that this node is quite a bit more powerful than you probably thought. So at the top here, we've got the after time interval. This is your standard wait time, so waits for a certain amount of time. We could click that and make it wait 1 hour or 2 hours. Below this, we've got at specific time. So this just waits into a specific date and time. So that would just be a little bit longer. And then all the way at the bottom, we've got an on form submission. So this is going to be more used when we have the form submission. We can do the same agent flow setup and use the on form submission in the wait call. But for our case, obviously, we're going to be using the webhook call. So on webhook call, waits for a webhook call before continuing. And this is really powerful. This isn't just waiting a certain amount of time. This is literally waiting until a webhook gets hit again. And so that means that this information is going to be stored on the backend in n8n, and this isn't going to expire. Even after 2 or 10 years, this is still going to be waiting for that webhook to come through. And when it does, the rest of the agent is going to move on. Once that webhook gets triggered again, this wait node will be completed. It will then move on to the lead scoring agent, and just continue the workflow as it would have had normally. So we're able to then reference the information from the lead researcher. If we wanted to inject information, additional information at this step as well, we could do that. So the wait node, we're able to just send additional information because we get the second chance to do that. We can send all of that to the lead scoring agent to process using a respond to webhook. Finally, we're able to send that back as normal. Hopefully that makes sense. This is obviously quite a streamlined, quite a basic example here, but we could definitely make this a lot more complex. We could just continue to add, 5, 10 more agents and workflows and automations to this particular scenario. And then we could just add more wait steps and more respond to webhooks, and it will be able to continue forever. And we're able to build that entire workflow and then obviously come back to our Replit system here and then just build the entire application around the backend that we have on n8n. So enough of the theory. I'm going to jump back into Replit. I'm going to build a brand new application and connect it to a brand new workflow so you can get a complete understanding as to how we can do this. I might build an email writing assistant. So maybe I want to provide some information about an email that I want to write. I want our agent to write that email for me, and then we'll have maybe a secondary button to go ahead and send that email through Gmail to a real person. So I might say, hi, I'm looking to build an AI email writing assistant. Want this to be a clean dashboard that allows me to add some notes on the email I'm looking to write. I should send a request to this webhook, and I am obviously going to get that webhook in just a second from n8n, so we can actually reference that. Once this webhook is complete, we will receive a completed email, and you need to display this to the user. Please also provide a button for them to send this email. And once that is clicked, it will get sent to this webhook. Just having a brief look at the agent I built previously, one of the ways that we were able to actually send another request and have it come through our agent is that the first webhook actually sent us back something called a resume URL. So if I have a look at the respond to webhook right here, you can see that a resume URL is actually being sent in this particular response body back to our Replit agent. And the reason that we did this is so that we can reference that resume URL within our application to use and then resume the actual workflow right here. So we aren't using the exact same webhook from the start here. We're using a slightly different one that was generated within these steps. So just to make it super clear, that's exactly what I'm referencing when I say which is provided by the previous webhook. I am referring to that. Just made a couple of updates to make sure that this is super clear as to what I want. So I just added this up here. When the notes are added to the email notes that I want to use to generate the new email with, there should be a button to generate the new email. So I'm being super specific as to how I want to interact with this. Then for the webhook, I said the app should send these notes as a request through this webhook to get the updated email. So super clear, super step-by-step. I obviously want this to work and be as clear as possible in order to get the best result. Coming back to n8n, obviously I now need the webhook to reference in our Replit request. So I'm going to jump back into this flow. I'm just going to type in webhook and we can get the webhook trigger right here. We can have multiple webhook triggers on the exact same workflow page right here. So I'm just going to add that in. I'm going to click into our webhook. I'm just building this as a demo. I'm just going to use the test URL for this particular webhook. But if you were building this for a production environment where you wanted it to run all of the time, you would need to swap this over to the production URL, of course, and then activate the workflow. Anyways, coming back to here, I'm just going to paste in that URL. Replit is smart enough to understand what the webhook is and that we can use this URL to get it sent off in the request. So hopefully it's smart enough to be able to do that. And if it isn't, we can pretty much just tell it to fix the errors when they pop up. So I just hit create and that has been sent off to Replit. It's going to go ahead and give us a couple options as to how we actually want to build the application. In just a second, we're going to get two options for this. Here we go. We've got these two options that just came up. We can have Replit build the entire app for us, or we can have it start with a design. We have a look right here. We'll get a few dot points as to exactly what Replit is going to do for us. So we can see here, we're going to build out a clean dashboard interface with text area for email notes input. We're going to have a generate button that sends notes to a specified webhook. We're going to display the generated email response from the webhook in a formatted preview area. Then we're going to have the send email button that posts the generated email to the secondary webhook URL provided in the first webhook's response. So that's pretty much exactly what I said before. We are getting that next URL from the first URL to send that email off to it. so that on our agent, we can actually process the email, text, loading states, and user feedback during webhook calls. And then professional, minimalist UI design focused on the email writing workflow. So perfect. That's all very comprehensive. That's exactly what I wrote out, and it clearly seems to understand exactly what I'm looking for. But once again, errors are likely to pop up and we can just tell it to fix them. When it comes to the choice as to build the entire app or start with the design, I typically go with starting with the design. I do like to see what it is prototyping as to what the app would look like, and I can provide some input before it builds out the entire thing. You can build the entire app if you want as well. That might save you some time. You can go off and get some lunch while this is running, although I do have some time, so I'm just going to run through the actual process of it building. All right, so 6 minutes later, this Replit agent has completed its job. We got a nice dashboard right here. Create professional emails instantly. Simply add notes and let the AI craft the perfect email for you. Awesome. Even made a light mode and a dark mode button, which is awesome. It always does that, which is great, pretty helpful. But yeah, it took 6 minutes, and I don't know if this even works yet, but I'm gonna try it out and see if we can get this to work. I was watching this workflow build as it was obviously creating itself. I did see that it tried to actually hit the webhook that I had provided it in the initial prompt that I sent it. So what I did do is I actually hit the execute workflow button whilst it was running, just to see if we could get it to recognize that it was working. So I'm not exactly sure if it is going to work right out the gate, but that's fine. I'm just going to run through exactly what this could look like. For my email note, I am just going to type random words just to see if this even works in the first place. I'll hit generate email. I'll make sure that this is currently turned on. I'm going to hit generate email. Failed to generate an email. Doesn't look like anything came through here. It doesn't look like we've had any events hit this particular webhook right now, so I can give that another try. It doesn't look like it is actually hitting this webhook whatsoever. So what I would pretty much do is just tell the Replit agent that it's not working and I'm not seeing a request on my end. I'm just going to copy this once again and tell it that's the case. So, hey, I don't see it working. I've got a failed to generate email error coming up. I also don't see any requests coming through to this webhook. Provide the webhook so it's got complete clarity as to what it needs to do to solve it. I'll pretty much send that off and just see if it does anything. It'll probably try and test that webhook. So make sure that this is still listening. I'll just go ahead and see if that does anything. Replit right here has just said that the webhook isn't working because it's returning a 404 error. So I believe that this error message came up earlier in the chat when it tried to run the webhook, and that's why it thinks it probably doesn't work, although I've now turned it on. It does say that this could mean the webhook workflow in n8n is not active, which I believe is the case. So I'm going to tell it the webhook was not active before. It is now active. Please try again. So we'll get it to try again. I'll hit listen to this again, making sure that it is still listening. Hopefully it can send a request off, and then it will understand that it works and that it can configure it to send the requests. Okay, so we did just get a request through, and we can see here with the execution that it is also now working. Now, one thing that it has already highlighted itself as a problem here is that the request method is get request. It should obviously be a post request because we are posting information from our application with the email notes off to this actual webhook right here. So mistake on my end, this does need to be swapped over to the post request. Pretty cool that Replit caught that up as well. And now that should work pretty well. So next, what I'll do is just to demonstrate this actually working, I'm going to grab an AI agent step. I am going to use this to generate that email response and then send it back to Replit. In this AI agent, I might just rename this by hitting the space bar, email creating agent. And then I'm going to give this a chat model so we can actually get some brains behind it and process a response. In this case, I'm just going to use Open Router, which gives us access to a bunch of different models at once. I probably don't need this memory tool right here as we aren't going to be having a chat conversation back and forth. And we aren't going to be using any tools specifically. The email writing function will be created as a separate node later in the workflow. I'll just jump into the email creating agent, and I'm just going to create a prompt to obviously take this input and generate an email from it. We do obviously need to change the way that information gets sent into this particular agent. We don't have a chat trigger node in this case. We need to click define below to swap it out of the chat mode. We'll then get the prompt user message to add in custom information. If we scroll through this right here, we'll see that we've got the notes parameter, which is coming through, and that came through from Replit itself. So this entire request came from Replit. I can take these notes, drag and drop that into here, and we've now got these notes coming through. Now that I've got the notes coming through, we can obviously do something with that. So I can click on add option down here and click into system message. And this is where I'm going to tell it to pretty much output an email response for this. So I'm going to give it a role, as I always do when creating agents. You are an email writing agent. You will be given some notes on an email I would like you to write. Please create a formal email that I can send off right away. Obviously, you'd want to refine this prompt to be better and use your personality and give it some examples and have endings to the email and signing off and literally whatever that you would want in an email, but this is just to demonstrate the purpose of it. Jumping out of the agent, I'm going to come back to the webhook. I'm going to click execute workflow. I'm going to go back to Replit and I'm going to give this thing a shot and see if we can get a response through and generate a response in the actual system. So I'm going to type hello, generate email. Hopefully that comes through. It came through and we can see that something has gone wrong. I'm going to jump into the agent, see what happened here. So the error that we got is no prompt specified, expected to find the prompt in an input field. It looks like the query notes has changed in this case. It is now under actually the body tag. So we're just going to swap this. Now this may have happened because the initial request before was done by Replit, whereas this particular request was done by the actual app itself. So two different reasons for why the structure would probably have been different there. Give that another go or hit execute workflow. I'm going to come over here, probably give it a better example of what an email could be. So give Darren a project update on the new software we are building, generate email, come back to n8n right here, and we can see the workflow went through perfectly. Jumping into the agent, we can see a cool email has been written up here as well. So subject, project update on new software development. Dear Darren, blah, blah, blah. Big email here about the project development. So awesome, that worked exactly how we expected it to do so. Coming back to Replit, you'll see we've got an invalid webhook response. And the reason for that is because we didn't actually send them anything. All we need to do is just click here and we need a respond to webhook node. We are going to be responding using JSON. So we're going to be creating some custom values that we want to send back to Replit, and we want to know the exact names of those values for Replit to be able to reference and use. We can see here, we've got a default field that it generates automatically, which says my field. In terms of the email, I might just create a field called email. I can take this output and I could just remove this and drop that in there. We do obviously need to make sure that this is formatted properly with JSON structure. So make sure to actually format this the way that JSON would be formatted. Which just means including the variable here in double quotations, adding a comma here. The next value that we do need to send back to Replit is going to be the resume URL. So if I add another double quotations, I'm just going to type the resume URL for our variable. I'm going to add in its value by going over to the left where it says variables and context. And what we're going to see is that we got back a resume URL right here from the execution of that initial webhook. And so very simply, what we can do is add double quotations back once again. We can take the resume URL and we can just drop it in the middle. I'm going to come back. I'm going to hit execute workflow. We're going to jump back to Replit and I'm going to hit generate email. Back to n8n, this actually failed again. And the reason for that, I believe, would be the responded to webhook node wasn't used as its response. All we need to do is just swap this over to use respond to webhook node. It's kind of weird that it doesn't do that automatically because it's kind of obvious that we're going to be using the respond to webhook node anyways, but just make sure to swap that over, hit save, and we'll try that again. Cool, so that just came through and ran into our respond to webhook node. And what you'll see here is that this actually seems to have failed once again. I do believe everything is set up properly, although what may have happened is that with our email in particular here, we've got a lot of new lines, and these new lines are potentially messing up the JSON structure to get sent back to Replit. So what we do need to do, and what I did do previously on the step up here, is just add in a prompt to make sure that the email is formatted so that it can be sent in the webhook. So coming back to my email agent, I'm just going to add a bit of text at the bottom here that has some rules for the output. So I'm going to type output rules. If you want to get access to this prompt and the rule set right here, you can actually get access to the entire template within my free school community, which I'll have linked in the description. We've got over 17,000 members and 50 plus other AI agent templates and courses. It's all free, so check it out. Try this again with that new prompt. So I'll hit execute workflow, back to Replit, hit generate email, back in here, and that should come through and get sent to our webhook. There we go. We'll jump back into here as well. Doesn't look like the webhook response came through. That is expected because now we need to reference exactly what that value would look like so we can populate it on the dashboard. So we'll come back here and tell it that we just sent a request to the webhook and the webhook sent a data with the email as well as the resume URL, but the app doesn't seem to have gotten this data. So I'll tell it that we just did a giant request. Hopefully it's able to actually have a look through the backlogs and see that data and be able to restructure the code to be able to use that data. And then finally, we should have a pretty solid app working. What I assume is that it managed to fix the actual webhook and see the data, but it didn't remember to actually populate that on the dashboard here. So it says it's now done. Once again, I'm going to type in here, random text. I'm just going to hit execute workflow, send that off, and hopefully we can get the respond to webhook to send back here. And there we go. Awesome. So now it is working. Okay. So moving on to the next node here, we're going to add in our wait step. And this is what's going to allow us to start to build out the function to send the email using the next step. Once again, like I talked about earlier, we're not going to be doing a specific time interval. We can do this specific for a webhook call. So I'll turn that on. I'll swap this over to a post request once again. And then at the bottom here with the responder field, like earlier, we do need to swap this over to using respond to webhook node. Next, I'm going to add in a Gmail send email step. So I'm going to type in Gmail. I'm going to click into here. I'm going to go down to the one to send a message, I believe it's called. And then I'm just going to populate some of these fields with some fake data, just so we can get this node actually running through. And then lastly, we're also going to do the respond to webhook once again, so we can have the wait step all completed and finalized. And what we can do is just send back a sort of a response. So we could just put in JSON once again, and we could say email sent, and we could just type status or something. This just makes it so our Replit agent will see the status as email sent, and it can confirm that with the user. Let's give it a go and jump back to Replit. We're going to go ahead and send an email and see if this button next will work with the resume URL. Is it going to work right away? Probably not. So I'm just going to hit execute workflow, back to Replit, and I'm going to send off some new notes. So I want to get an email talking to Dave about a new building in the area. Generate email, hopefully gets sent back here. Generating the email, respond to webhook, and now it's waiting. We've got the email that's populated right here. Awesome. I'm going to hit send email, see what happens here. Looks like that went through. So we got the wait step that worked, send a message and respond to webhook. Looks like that did, and it says the email has been sent successfully as well. I can see here that the email has also perfectly came through. So the email content here doesn't have anything to do with the email that we generated, and that's because I haven't populated any of these fields. So what I can do, because we are all within one workflow, I can change the message to the email here. Obviously, it looks like the subject line is also in the email. So we would like to actually separate those two, and we would need to go back to Replit and restructure the app to have a subject line field as well as an email field. I've just created a new email. I said I want to get an email talking to Dave about free donuts in the office. It's gone ahead and generated that email for us. I'm going to hit the send email button. Hopefully that hits this again, and it did. And we can see that that email has come through now as well. So we can see all the information has populated. Hi Dave, I want to let you know that we're offering free donuts in the office this week. Blah, blah, blah. Obviously this entire email would need to be formatted better. We would want this to be formatted in something like HTML, so we can have a separate agent to format the information here in HTML so it looks quite nice. We would want to separate the subject line and add it up here, of course. We want to have that change made on the application itself. But overall, we've now got a fully fledged front-end application for this n8n workflow. Able to send one request and then after that send another request, but still stay within the exact same flow. This definitely beats out the form submission. You're going to be able to build far better applications that are much more usable using something like this. If you want to learn more about building systems and interacting with agents on n8n, I would definitely recommend checking out this video right here, where I showcase exactly how to set up a WhatsApp AI agent connected into n8n. And if you could hit the subscribe button and like the video, it helps out more than you could imagine. And if you do see a hype button as well, it's a brand new feature to YouTube. If you could click that, that would mean a lot. For some reason, that really pushes these videos.